it's something that actually pretty much every business can innovate on a daily basis, and thinking about what sort of experience they're giving their customers. Now, Ronald Burt is a professor at Chicago University, and he did this really amazing study where he went into an organisation and he watched where innovation occurred and how it occurred. So this dot is you, okay? This dot is you at work. You've got a colleague at work, and between you, you have a to and fro exchange of information. You've got a third colleague, and between the three of you, there's this network of communication that goes on. Same with the fourth, fifth. And we have these different teams within our organisation. Now, what Ronald Burt discovered was that these groups have knowledge that is unique to those groups, okay? A certain way of doing things, a certain culture, a certain perspective, and they are homogenous groups. And there's quite often the culture that's in this group can be very different from the culture in this group. So the guys in finance can be streets to the ones in marketing, like just totally different headspaces. What Burt discovered was when there's a person that has knowledge of each of these areas, a broker, that these people are the most likely sources of innovation. It discovered that not only is innovation linked to the number of groups that you have, so if I'm linked to more groups, my ideas will be better. I am more statistically likely to be higher up in the organisation, and the organisation is more likely to adopt my ideas. So brokerage is really critical in this concept of innovation, and this happens inside and out of the organisation. It's not just in companies. Okay, this happens everywhere. And the reason is it's this concept of knowledge, so explicit knowledge versus tacit. And I'll tell you what the two are. Explicit knowledge are things that are documented. It's your processes. It's things that are written down. But your tacit knowledge, which is by far and away the most valuable, is the knowledge of when you apply them. It's the context around what's written. It's the history of how you got there, the decision-making process. And this is where the value is. I'll give you a good example of what I'm talking about. There was a company that was responsible for pumping oil out of stranded ships up in the Arctic. Okay? And what happened was when they went to pump the oil, it froze in the pipe. And they couldn't figure out how to actually keep the oil flowing from one ship to the other. So they used Innocentive, which we'll see a bit of later. And the guy that solved it was a concreter. And he said, when we lay a big concrete base, we have an agitator, and it agitates and it keeps it moving. Why don't you get an agitator that actually sits down the pipe and just keeps the oil moving? And they did, and it worked. But it's a great example of taking tacit knowledge, which is sort of known in one area, and drawing it across and applying it in another area that is directly applicable but may not be a logical connection at first. Okay? And that brokerage role is what's really critical. So if you think about, okay, I'll get into it in a sec. And the 2006 IBM CEO survey was a really awesome survey about innovation and social media. And it looked at specifically where do innovations come from? Who is it that innovates the best? And most value comes out of your employees, your business partners and your customers. Interestingly, internal R&D is so far behind. We really have moved to a new model of innovation. If you're looking to turbocharge innovation within your organisation, start with your employees, start with your business partners, start with your customers. Employees are easiest. It's the easiest runs you're going to get. They're there every day. They're happy to be asked these sorts of questions because it makes their life better. So if you think about the networks that we form through the innovation process, I showed you the permeable walls, but from a connected innovation standpoint, you start to see that there's this explore phase where ideas are thrown in and discussed, and then actually the engage phase comes through. It's where it hits the formal structure of the organisation, and you start to put resources behind it. And then the exploit phase is when it goes back to discussion. So this is your continuous improvement. So if you realise that these are the networks that we build every day in our standard lives as we live, and then now we switch it across to social media and you look at the internet and the structure of the internet, you can start to see some relations. So this is a relationship map of the internet, right? This could be the .com domain, this could be the .au, this is the kid looking at their phone in the mall. This is a living space, and it is the world's largest platform of brokerage. And that's why social media is responsible for, we're seeing a lot of innovation generated out of social media today. So the examples that I'm going to use, the first is Deloitte. They have this thing called an Innovation Academy. And when anyone can put up an idea and you get 10 votes to vote on the worth of other people's ideas. So through this voting process, the ideas bubble to the top. The thing that I really want to go into tonight though is Yammer. So this is where they do their discussion. Okay? Yammer is a bit like a Twitter, but it's for within the organisation. Does anyone use Yammer here or know it? Not yet? Okay. It's like a private network. So only people with your URL email address can actually get access to your network. Yeah. So the Deloitte model is all about harnessing the power of their employees. Okay. NRMA is the other model. And what they do is they broadcast a whole heap of activities. So they use Twitter, they use Facebook, they do blogs, they do YouTube, they use all these things, and they try and generate all this discussion that occurs out in the web. And they try and build up discussion so they can actually generate opinions of what people think of their services. And then they use this thing, this aggregator, it's called Radian 6. And it goes out and it draws in all the mentions of their product. They also pull in mentions of their competitors and anything relating to their industry, and they go through it pretty much line by line, and they see what are the big points, what are the needs of their customer base, and what are the needs of their customers before their customers even know they need it. So what are they talking about? NRMA has this really, really unique problem, and that is that their membership base is ageing. So the younger people that are coming through today are so used to cars that don't break down or cars being sold with after-sales service that they don't see the need for the NRMA. So the purpose of their innovation is to try and draw younger members in and to position themselves as the authority on roads and cars across all demographics, but in particular young people. I should have mentioned too with the Deloitte one, their KPI for successful innovation is they want 20% of the revenue that comes in this year or now to be from services that didn't exist 12 months ago. That's really ambitious. That's really, really ambitious. But it's a lovely KPI that they can measure themselves against and how they're championing innovation. InnoCentive is completely different again. So InnoCentive actually came out of the medical research area, and what it is companies, they're made up of two communities. There's solvers and there's people that have difficulties or problems they're trying to solve. So if we're a company and we've got a particular something that we want developed, we don't know how to go about it, we can take it to InnoCentive. They'll post a reward, say it could be 10 grand, could be $1 million, could be whatever it is, and then they broadcast that out to their group of solvers. Anyone can be a solver, I'm a solver. And what happens is these people end up getting 5 or 6 responses back about how they could solve their problem. Okay? And they award the prize to the number one solution. So all three models are completely different. But what you'll see is that those 5 things that I've told you about before, the